HomeSide Chats. This is Andrea French, Executive Director for TAG, Transportation Advocacy Group. Today's episode, we're joined by Houston City Council member Amy Peck for District A. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
So we know that you were just about getting acclimated in your new role, and embracing and hitting the ground running. And here we are, March really 11th is the day that we kind of hone in on, because that's the day that the rodeo shut down.
Yeah.
We know conversations were kind of circling before that, but so we're well over a month now, and there's a new reality that you're facing every day and a new normal. And so I just want to hear a little bit about how your days are looking, and kind of how you're experiencing some of the challenges and opportunities right now.
Well, I mean, before all of this happened, every single day was different, but now it's even just the stuff that we are dealing with every single day is just nothing what we expected. When I first got into office, I thought it would just be about flooding issues, public safety, quality of life, and then this hit. So it's very different than I think what anyone expected this year to look like. But we are adapting to working from home, and it was a pretty easy transition for the District A team because we were already working from home so much. At night, the staff would always check their emails. We would check voicemails remotely. We all had our tablets ready to go. So that was a pretty smooth transition, but we're just, learning to work from home, as I think everybody else is as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so can you talk a little bit about how your committee work has translated and taken on a new form, as a leader in the city, and as you're kind of helping with the response to the pandemic, with the inability to be able to really kind of link arms like we would do during a hurricane or something like that. So can you talk about how that experience has been for you in your office?
Yeah, I mean, it's so different from a hurricane or any other disaster. In January, we had that big explosion in District A. And so we were still recovering from that when all of this hit. And so it's a very unique situation where you can't really see it. It's not like an explosion that you see what needs to be done. It's not like a hurricane where you see the impact of it. So it's a very different work. It's different recovery work than I think what we're used to. So it's just learning how to adapt to something completely different that we haven't seen before.
Right. And so can you share a little bit about how your district what are some of the top issues and concerns that your particular district has had during all of this, right? We share some common issues and challenges, but has there been anything specific to your district that's been, high on the priority list for you?
Well, I think for District A, it's very similar to the rest of the city, the rest of the nation. People are concerned about their jobs. A lot of people in District A own small businesses, and they're very concerned, if that's going to continue, how that can continue. There's concern about food and making sure that kids stay educated throughout this whole time. And also just, unemployment is a very big reality for not only for District A, but for this entire country. And so it's just, worrying about those issues right now, and also making sure that people get the supplies that they need, the face masks, the cleaning supplies, toilet paper. I checked in on some senior residences over the weekend, and they were concerned about the lack of supplies. And so that's something that we are working on as well.
Right. And I know a lot of the council members have been partnering or working very closely with specific kind of charitable organizations. And so I didn't know if there were a few that you kind of wanted to plug or applaud that you've seen specifically, in your district that are really out there on the front lines right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There are so many great organizations that have come together, as they always do in any kind of disaster. And so Memorial Assistance Ministries has been key in all of this, helping constituents. They are just amazing. And also the Korean Community Center, which is in District A, we have a lot of the people there making masks. They just gave us 200 masks, and we're distributing that throughout the community to senior citizens and people in need. So it's groups like that that just come together again and again, and they continue to do so. And it's just really, it's heartwarming to see that even though people are struggling, they're also giving back as well.
Right, absolutely. I think people have said that this is kind of the American spirit and ingenuity at its
Absolutely.
best, right? Where people are trying to pivot and find ways to be of service, and have to do it and have to really think about it and be creative about it. With,
Absolutely.
limited ability to connect with one another. And so as we talk about kind of that desire to connect and the desire to kind of move through this, there is a lot of the chatter of the reopening and what that looks like. And, obviously most of the leaders that I've spoken with have been very, very emphatic in saying that it is such a gradual thing and it is such a day-to-day thing. And so I don't know if you could kind of share your perspective on kind of all of the chatter around the reopening and what that might look like.
Yeah, I mean, I think in District A, as far as my constituents, people are eager to go back to work. They're eager to open their businesses back up, their restaurants. And so I think people are just very excited to do that right now. And it's just everything changes so fast in this. And so it really is day to day. And so what's good for today might not be good for tomorrow. And so it's really just monitoring that and making sure that when people do go back to some kind of normalcy, that they are safe in doing so.
Right. And Judge Hidalgo, issued the mask order, and there's been, it's kind of the latest wave of all of the social media buzz and conversation, and everybody has a different opinion about it. And so, but obviously safety first, and it is on notice for 30 days. And so I am kind of curious how that's been received at the city level. And if you kind of know how the mayor is handling any of the concerns. He received a lot of, there's a lot of disagreement when he closed the rodeo down, right? And this feels a little bit like that again, where people are, it's just hard, it's change, right? And it's something that we're not accustomed to. So I didn't know if you had any thoughts to share on that.
Yeah, I mean, for the rodeo closure, I was in support of that decision. I think that it was the right decision at the right time to do so. So I think he made the very tough but right decision there. The mask decision, that mandate, my constituents have been very vocal that they do not support this. And I actually just came out with a statement opposing it as well. Not that I have the authority to, vote for it one way or another. It's a county decision.
Right.
But I think it's kind of like the last straw in all of this. People are already so upset. They're already unemployed. They're already, not working, and they're having to, homeschool their kids and do all these things that they're not accustomed to. And I think that this was just that last straw of like, enough already. Let's get back to some kind of normalcy. Let's get back to work. And so I think that it was just really the last straw. And my suggestion in the statement that I've issued is that really we need to prioritize getting masks to people rather than just saying, everyone needs to wear a mask. And I know that they could wear any kind of face covering, but really certain masks are going to be better to prevent COVID than, just a t-shirt. And so I think that we should use some of the federal money that we're getting to purchase masks and give it to our vulnerable communities, because I think if we give it out, people are going to wear it. They're going to be more inclined to wear it. So we should also give it out in grocery stores, places where people are going to congregate in close proximity to one another. And I think that would be the best way to keep people safe.
Right. No, I think you make some interesting points. I did wonder when the issue came out, is there a sense that there is enough to go around to make a mandate? And that was kind of one of the boxes, right, that you want to make sure that you check. And it is interesting, the federal money that came for municipalities is really for kind of a reimbursement for costs associated with COVID-19, not necessarily reimbursements for some of the loss in revenue, right? But really expenses. And so could this be listed very easily as an expense to be able to go out and purchase these masks and provide them. And I think you're absolutely right. Grocery stores and places where we're in, closer proximity to each other. And so I appreciate you, taking that stance. I am curious, have the other council members also issued similar statements or?
Well, I did sign on to a letter with council members Knox, Travis, and Kubosh, and actually that just came out a few minutes ago. And so
I didn't see it.
Yeah. And I'm also issuing the statement as well, in addition to that, just kind of for my constituents to know my, personal stance on it. And also, taking their stance too, because we've heard from a lot of constituents that they are upset with this. So I think that there are some other council members that are opposed to it, but again, it's a county decision. And so all we can do is just urge the county judge to reconsider that. And my request really is that we give masks to people. And I think that they will be more inclined to wear it than just issuing that mandate with kind of nothing to back it up. I know Mayor Turner is issuing 1,000 masks to each council district, which is great. I applaud him for doing that, but I have 288,000 people in my district. And so it's hard, 1,000 masks to spread out to the entire community. So I think we just need to purchase as many as we can with those federal funds. If they're saying that the masks are the best way to prevent coronavirus, then I think that we need to do everything we can to help prevent it.
Well, and I think too, some of the, a lot of the anxiety over the mandate was the fines were significant, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, $1,000 fine, and our police officers are already stretched so thin. And so to ask them to issue citations and fines to people, I just don't think it's the best use of resources right now. And one of the other suggestions that I made is that we also give masks to our first responders. So when they encounter someone who's not wearing a mask, they can actually give them a mask and make it a positive experience, give it to people who need it, rather than the experience being, well, here's a citation.
Right. No, that makes sense. And so you talked a little bit about how some of your small business owners, you have a lot of them, obviously District A, they're all over the city, kind of that wanting to get back to business. Do you think that kind of the mask order is, we want to be supportive of you opening your business, but these are some of the steps that we need to take. But it's not just the masks, right? And so there has to be other things that are considered, and it probably is kind of a package situation before we start to gradually open up. And then even then, we're going to have limitations on numbers and distance and things like that. So I think that that's what, from the conversations that I've had, even just amongst kind of friends and neighbors, it is this, well, certainly we can't just open up and it's all back to normal, right? So I think we're all trying to understand what that truly is going to look like. And is it going to be, no more than 10, no more than 20, no more than 50, kind of what is that going to look like? And I don't know if you have a sense for that, if there's been discussions, or if it's really just we're taking it one day, 1 week at a time right now.
I think right now it's just one day at a time. And I'm very curious to see when the governor kind of releases all the information as far as opening the state back up, how that's really going to impact Harris County and the city of Houston, and what changes from that, they might make to really cater to what's going on here in Houston and in Harris County. And so, I'm very curious once all of that information comes out to see how that's going to impact District A.
Right. Yeah. And I do think too, it is the layers, right? The different layers, and people, we in kind of the world of government and politics, we see those layers consistently, right? But right now it's kind of under a magnifying glass, because you're hearing from the state, you're hearing from the national, you're hearing from your county, now your city. And so, it has been challenging for people to kind of look. And one of the recommendations was really to start as locally as possible with the decisions that you're making, to look towards your closest local leader, because they are the ones that are going to have the most relevant information for where you are and where you live and your kind of surroundings. And so, someone commented that Galveston County didn't make some of the choices that we made earlier on, right? And so maybe they're a few weeks behind us. And so we don't want to always, you have to make your decisions based on really, truly where you are and kind of leader. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's not a one size fits all, just kind of like anything that happens at the city of Houston. The needs are so different from one area. Even within District A, the needs, in Spring Branch are very different than Inwood. I mean, it's so different just within one council district. So when you look at the whole city and then the whole county, it's very, very different. And so it is very important to look at your local government first to see what's going on there. And I always tell people to make sure you get good information, and it's not just something on social media of, my friends said this information, and then it gets spread around and it's not accurate. So just make sure you're looking at actual government websites or actual elected officials, information that they're sending out.
Right, right. And so also, as we talk about kind of reopening, at the same time, July 1 starts the city's new fiscal year.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know those are heavy discussions right now, especially as we look towards federal government for any type of relief, but not being able to officially plan for that as you make some of the budget, as you have some of the budget discussions. And so I am curious if part of the budget discussions are looking at areas where there could be job stimulators, right? I know that there's, furloughs are on the table, things like that. But at the same time, how do you, as a city, how do you invest in those sectors that are kind of also the job stimulators and the things that will bring the economy back? And so
absolutely. Yeah, that has to be part of that budget, is how we bring the economy back. And so I know a lot of small businesses, and even the larger businesses too, that have made certain sacrifices, that are, eager to get back to work, and what that's going to look like, and how city government can play any kind of role in that, whether that's tax relief or any other relief that we can give to businesses so that they can bring their employees back and get people back to work. And so I think that needs to be a key issue in the next budget. And it's going to be very different. It's going to be, nothing like what we expected. So I had a very long list of budget amendments that I was working on before all of this hit, that I'm going to have to probably table for a while. But I am looking at amendments that will help streamline the city's budget, and try to, services too for people as well.
Right. Yeah. And I think even in conversations with state leaders that I've had, right, it is, you are kind of wiping the board a little bit, mm-hmm. and coming back to the table. However, it's an opportunity to really refocus priorities, and it will be a reflection of kind of the city's values and our leaders' values, right? Kind of coming back to the table and saying, okay, what do we really need to be able to focus on to get us back on our feet? And we don't want to. Certainly want to lose sight of all those things that we were already working on, mm-hmm. before all this hit. Obviously, TAG, representing transportation, we had a lot of things that we were preparing for to have ready for the session, and working locally, even with TxDOT on kind of their unified transportation program and things like that. And you have to say, okay, well, we need to pivot a little bit. We need to adjust our sails a little bit, but we don't want to lose a lot of the stuff that we've been working on for so long. And so, yes. So that's been a focus, is how do we take the priorities that we were working on, pivot for the moment, but also kind of keep on that track, that long-term track of policy. That's
yeah, absolutely. I mean, just because COVID hit doesn't mean that all of the other issues that we had before this went away. And so when I took office, I thought, infrastructure, public safety, quality of life issues, and all of those issues are still there. And so it's, having an eye for COVID and recovery there, but also remembering that there are other issues that still need to be addressed. There's still infrastructure issues in District A. There's still flooding in District A. And I'm concerned, what happens if we're still in the midst of this COVID crisis during hurricane season, and, having to rescue people and taking them to a shelter, and then everyone gets sick. And so there's a lot to consider there, that we need to make sure that our infrastructure is sound, so that in situations like this, I mean, hopefully we don't have anything like this again, but if we do have something like this, that we need to be sure that people aren't going to flood, so we don't need a whole rescue effort during a pandemic.
Right. And one of the things too that we've talked about is, focusing on how infrastructure has continued, our infrastructure that we've already invested in has continued, mm-hmm. to carry us through this shipment of goods, our ports, our med center, and the access to the med center, and why it is important to make those investments when we're not in an emergency situation, because when we are, it is everything that we have to rely on to kind of keep things moving. So
absolutely, people still need the roads to get to grocery stores, so it's still there. They still need sound infrastructure.
Yeah, and one of the fortunate things about kind of the infrastructure industry is that in many cases projects that were already ongoing, have continued, and workers they're still able to work, they're still able to do construction, and so that's been great. One of the other things too that we've really considered is some of the policies and some of the funding priorities that might come out of this that are different, right? Do we have a new appreciation for our bikeways and our trails and our parks? And, how does it or does it not, shift some appreciation and priority? Do we also understand the importance of the movement of freight and what that does, and how do we look towards that? So I think those are some of the things that we're looking at, and we want to be ready. Houston, we want to be poised for when there is an infusion of dollars from the federal government for infrastructure, which there really, there's a lot of conversation about, that we really make it clear that when they make that investment, the return on that investment is going to be much more significant here in Houston than it would be perhaps in many other major metropolitan areas.
Oh, absolutely.
We have so many, I call them kind of crown jewels, that have continued to kind of power us through. And so that's kind of, those are some of the things that we're focused on. And, we want to see similar investments coming from the city to kind of keep the infrastructure, like you said, kind of quality of life. It may not be the robust plan that we had originally considered, but that has to be a continued priority.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. And so can you share, one of the other things too I've been asking is, we've all learned a lot about ourselves in this process. And so things maybe we didn't want to know, things that we knew but have been exposed a bit more. So anything that you've learned about yourself in this process, or just that's been surprising?
I don't know that it's something that I've learned necessarily, but just kind of came to the forefront is, just how important family is, how important staying connected with people is. And, my husband had to self-quarantine away from the house. He's fine. It was just, precaution. And
Right.
so he's coming home today, but we haven't seen him in 3 weeks. So it's, and I have 2 little kids. So it's just, working through all of that. And I know a lot of people are in very similar situations. So it's just realizing how important, that time is with the kids and with family. And that's just been really important.
Wow. Well, that is, congrats on that. I mean, that's a special day. So I think it's, a reminder too, that we are all kind of dealing with things in our own way, but you never know what someone's experiencing. And that's an incredible challenge. You have appreciation, but that's an enormous challenge. So I'm happy that you are on the other side of it now. And
yes, I'm happy to get him back home. And I know a lot of people have similar situations where, maybe it's just a one-parent household and they're trying to work from home and also teach their kids at the same time. I mean, luckily my kids are 5 months and 2.5 years, so they weren't in school yet. But a lot of parents are facing that situation of how to juggle everything at the same time. So it was just a small taste of what other people are dealing with as well.
Right. Well, we appreciate all of your time and your leadership and your service, and thank you so much for this opportunity to really have kind of an intimate discussion and understanding better what your days are looking like. We are seeing things in kind of small snippets, and so it's really so fortunate that we can have an opportunity like this to learn more, and really appreciate all of your insights and helping us look at things from a lot of different angles, because it's a constantly moving target, and so we really have to stay informed. So thank you again for your time today. We look forward to more conversations as we walk through this and as we get to the other side, and hopefully in person.
Yes.
And
well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and be safe and healthy, and
you too.
Soon.
Thank you.
That was HomeSide Chats. We hope you enjoyed the program today. This series would not be possible without the partnership and support of our 2020 mobility partners. We thank you. Stay tuned for more episodes of HomeSide Chats.